Traveler are gonna sock it to you with their new album, Traveler's Soul. It's a collection of covers by the likes of greats like Al Green and Curtis Mayfield, along with some unlikely surprises. We last heard from the band a few years ago when they released Traveler's Blues. Here is bass player Tad Kinchla to tell us how they made the transition from blues to soul.
Blues Traveler, people would think we're a blues band. We're not really a blues band. So that was like gymnastics for us to try to be like kind of bluesy. You know, it's like five white guys from New Jersey.
Yeah.
So clearly, you know,
fair enough.
And that was that was good. That was a fun process. So this soul thing was much easier as far as like, hey, we'll sit back and just, but you start like kind of peeling apart these songs that you really like, and you're like, wow, this is like really, it's so interesting how complicated the stuff that you really like is.
Right.
You know, like the soul grooves aren't just like free, like, hey, just play it.
Yep.
It's way more and it's what you don't play that's cool.
Yep.
And so that process was really interesting for us. So it was cool.
And as a bass player, did you have any specific things that you had to keep in mind, or bass players that you had to look at or look to, or a style that you had to change?
No, it was more like a tonal thing. It was like, how do I get that tone? And what's funny is like, there's, you know, and I'm like for years I've been a trader, seller, buyer of basses, and I've tried everything just because it's like, you know, a hobby of mine.
Yeah.
And what's funny is like the more down the road of like exotic, crazy things you go, the more you end up back at like a P bass with some foam and flat wounds from 1965 might just be the best bass sound ever.
There you go.
You know, but it takes you have to go on that journey to get back there.
Gotcha. So, and I'm wondering, with the five guys in the band, five different opinions, I'm guessing, how do you settle in on these songs that you're going to cover? Because it's quite a range of different styles. I mean, it's not just soul songs. I mean, you're covering Curtis Mayfield and Al Green, but also the Beatles and, you know, all sorts of other stuff. Delight.
Delight. And we just kind of threw songs out and then had kind of a collective with the producer, and we like sat and we're like, oh, let's try this, and nothing was off the table. So it was, each of us, I think, gave about 5 or 6 ideas, and including the producer and the record company, and that's how we came up with the kind of final songs. But it was interesting. You know, it's anytime you go down that kind of, you start listening and deconstructing some songs that you might want to do, you find it's a lot more complex than you thought.
Right.
You know, it's like, I always like U2. I'm like, oh, it's free, and it's got that delay on guitar, and it's super. And then when you start deconstructing U2 songs, you're like, wow, these are really, evolved songs, you know.
It's interesting you mentioned U2. I just went to see a band, Pluto. They're a local Kiwi band that have been around for 20 years. And their producer was their opening act. And between the two of them, they had a long on-stage discussion about exactly that, about how they listened to U2 when they were growing up and thought how and how their perceptions of what that could, especially the guitar sound, was like. So something to be said.
And it's so funny. And as a bass player, I grew up playing just like, a lot of Led Zeppelin riffs to learn.
Sure.
But I also played a lot of Duran Duran, and it's so funny, like, 20, 30 years later, Duran Duran isn't this feathery synth pop band. It's like a legit band.
Have you heard their new album? They just put an album out. It's got their version of Psycho Killer on it.
It's fantastic. And also, everyone can play. Every single member of that band can play. Nowadays, like, there's a guy that doesn't do anything really, and then there's a guy who plays, but it's so interesting when you deconstruct all these earlier kind of influences, like David Bowie, like his production was just
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Yep.
And that's what I grew up on. So
Very cool. Very
we
cool.
tried we tried to kind of maybe like push that into our process. Didn't really work, but
All right. So you mentioned your producer is Matt Rawlings. So what did he
yes,
bring to the table?
he's just, I mean, Matt's super annoying because you'll be like, he's like, oh, you're flat. Oh. He's brilliant. Can play the keyboard, but also works with John extremely well. And
Right.
we had a really I think this is our third project with Matt, and I mean, Matt's great. Matt's great.
Yeah.
And he's a real, his ability to hear things beyond what we hear is it's weird when you're around people like that, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like we play live gigs, it's like, hey, and he listens and hears stuff that we can't.
Now the album kicks off with a Curtis Mayfield tune called "Fool for You," which I consider myself a Curtis Mayfield and the Impressions fan, but I was not familiar with that song. So
oh no,
yeah, so that's pretty cool. So who came up with that one?
Never like nobody that's been mean to me. I got a heart full of stone, and I hate the misery that you came along into my life, destroying me more, mounting up the toil and strife. But I'm a fool for you. I'm a fool for you. I'm a fool for you. I'm a fool for you.
Fool for You, I think, was me.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. I went down like a weird wormhole where one night my kids were to bed and my wife, started listening to some old soul songs, and like 8 hours later, I was like, oh my God, I love this song,
Right.
Yeah. It's one of the challenging things of doing like revisiting soul stuff is that you go back to their production and you think it's super simple because at the time it was limited by track. They didn't have digital, they didn't have auto tune, all this stuff.
Yep.
But then when you go through it, it's really complex, and like everyone has to be on point when they're recording.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like inspirational when you're like, hey dudes, we should be able to just knock this out in one take, because that's what they did.
Yep.
If we can't do that, then we're not good.
Yeah, you don't want to come to that conclusion, especially at this point in your career.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now, I never thought of "Que Sera Sera" as a soul tune, especially as sung by Doris Day. So interesting one to bring into the fold. Who tell me how that came about?
Que sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be, will be. The future's not ours to see. Que sera, que sera.
That was John.
John,
Yeah.
okay.
And again, like we're as a band, we're limited by our vocal, performance. So most things are run through John. I mean, he's the singer, and
Sure.
It's just like an instrument, a sax or whatever. If you're going to do a song, he's got to be confident and happy to do it. So,
Yep. And he's getting a little help from, who's it? Wendy Moten on that one from The Voice.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Were those decisions the producer Matt's or the band's or John's or how?
Yeah, it was Matt. Actually, it was funny, the blues thing. And this one as well. We like literally it was like me and Bren. So Bren's the drummer.
Yeah.
And we'd lay down like the fundamentals.
Right.
the rhythm section. But I remember hearing the song like, 4 months later, having no idea who sang on it and who like was, like added to it. And it's so cool because
Yep.
you're like, but I remember texting or emailing, I don't know which, emailing Matt, being like, who's singing on this? It sounds great, So we actually have we didn't have any influence on who was going to be added to it.
Uh-huh.
John might have, but I don't think he was. I think it was more Matt.
Man, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So you get the album and you go, oh, that's what it's going to sound like.
Yeah. No, we were at the Grammys and they played the song and I was like, who is that singing? It was, but I was psyched to be there. So, hey.
I'm sure you were. Yeah. Why not?
Yeah, of course.
And I do like the cover of "Groove Is in the Heart," and another one that you wouldn't have thought off the top of your head that would be one to cover.
The depth of who the groove moves to, the effort. We gotta go to haunting kids like hoo-hoo. I couldn't ask for another. I couldn't ask for another. DJ Soul was on the roll. I've been told it can't be sold. He's not vicious or malicious, just lovely and delicious. I couldn't ask for another.
And that was actually really fun. Me and Shan played everything. That wasn't cut and paste. We played every lick on that entire song, which after about 3 minutes does get a little tough.
Yeah. And was it Bootsy Collins that was playing on that?
Yeah. And he plays. I've just played a bunch of Bootsy songs in other bands and different times, and he has a weird fingering thing. And I didn't see a video of him playing it, but when you do figure out, it's so much easier than the way my brother was playing it, and it was like, and I'm like, Chan, do it this way, and we're brothers, so he's like, no, I'm not. I'm gonna do it my way. I'm like, dude, so much easier this way,
Right.
And I'm like, we're gonna do it for 4 minutes. So, and then about 2 minutes in, he was like, hey, Tad, what's the way that it was kind of one of those funny things. But again, it goes back to like sometimes repetition is, we would never think of doing repetition as a band,
right?
Just same riff. I mean, granted, Run Around and Hook are about repetition, but we not the same riff,
right?
Not in the same case.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and it was fun.
Yeah,
it was fun, super fun.
And somebody's got an affinity for New Orleans music. Obviously, there's an Alan Toussaint song, an old Meters cover. So who makes that? Who's going with that?
I was Alan Toussaint and I was Meters.
Nice one.
My suggestions. Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I play bass, so
yeah.
There's nothing better than Alan Toussaint. That song's a treasure. Most people don't know it.
This world is getting so much faster. It's too sad. Poor train rolling down slow, and I'm about to keep up with the latter. It's too bad when it's in my nature to lay low. You got me huffing and puffing and chugging like a choo-choo train. Huffing and puffing and chugging like a choo-choo train.
And it was actually, that was a weird one to peel back, because the riff, you could probably play the riff and be like, oh, that's the riff. It's not the riff.
Right.
It's like there's subtleties and all this weird stuff. And of course, Matt Rollins, who hears every semitone, is like, that's not it. In like 45 minutes in the morning, I'm like, me telling Matt with coffee, I'm like, you're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're right. You're right.
Very good. So with that kind of thing going on, does it get a little stressful, a little tense sometimes?
No. We are the most jovial, super sarcastic, cynical group of guys that you could be in a studio with.
Right.
So all tension gets diffused. instantly. I mean, we just give each other,
Yep.
I'm sure most, like, if you're going to be 30 years old as a band, you got to have a good sense of humor, thick skin.
Yep.
And we give as much as we get, and it's fun. And Matt got that right away. I feel like there's like 2 tiers with Matt Rollins. He's like, there's the 4 guys from Blues Traveler, and then there's John.
Right. Very good. So with another covers album in the can, are there thoughts ahead of doing your own stuff?
Yes, yeah, we have a bunch on the docket. So we're hoping maybe next year to put it down. We have tours up until next winter, and then some dates going into through the winter next year. So, and we'd love to.
Yep.
We'd love to. We have, I'd say, maybe 20 songs that we're, tossing around. So.
Gotcha. And I'm wondering, I know the band's been around since like late 80s. You're the new guy. But,
I am.
but still, I'm wondering, what is the motivation the same to make new music as now as it was back then, or has it changed?
It's changed. It's totally changed. Yeah, it's, we've been, so fortunate to be kind of grandfathered into this era of music that, we play different songs and different sets every night. And that really like lends itself to our audience. However, it's also a little weird when you're creating new music. Like prior to me joining the band made success on a couple albums, but like that can't be had again. You know what I mean? Like no band can do it. Like it's like Beyonce or like Taylor Swift. I mean, no one makes money off of selling music. They tour. And so we were graced with the ability to keep touring for 30 years, and that's what we love to do. New music is on the horizon, and we love writing new music, but it's a different thought process. Like we can do whatever we want because it doesn't matter about sales.
Right.
So I kind of feel like we're in like more of a power situation where whatever cool songs we want to do, we can do.
Well, you take money out of the equation, that's what you get.
Yeah, no, exactly. Isn't that weird?
Unfortunately, you still got to eat and pay the rent.
Yes. Yeah. And then that's what touring is. And we love touring, and we're all, it's a high school band that's been doing it for 30 years. So
have you guys been down in New Zealand at all? I can't remember.
No,
I didn't.
No. Oh God. It's so funny. Just 2 weeks ago, sold a bass to a kid in New Zealand. I have a buy-sell trade.
Right.
Just sold a kid a bass in New Zealand, and just sounded like the nicest guy. And I kind of want to hook him up with like a setup thing that I'm going to do and all this. But he's in New Zealand, and I'm like, where do you play? He's like, no, I don't play much.
Really? Oh, where did you know what town he lived in, or whereabouts?
Yeah, it was a little in from the coast, is what he said. So
it's all coast here.
I mean, New Zealand. I would love to. Are you kidding me? I would love to get to New Zealand. I mean, we're a band.
Yeah. Well, you hook up with, because Australia is just across the ditch, as we say, so you can, work out.
Do you guys have a good relationship with Australians, or is it?
It's kind of like Canada and the U.S. kind of thing, Only we're the Canada, and they're the.
I get it,
but it's cool.
In the States, New Zealand's like the cool place.
Well, it is.
Just so you know, so Australia is like the established place, and I'm sure you think that like, oh, it's U.S., but Canada's cool.
Yep.
Canada's like, okay.
They had a few decent songwriters come out of there, so.
They did.
Leonard Cohen, Neil Young, Joni Mitchell.
A couple.
All righty. Well, we could go on forever, but we probably should.
Yeah, I think so.
All righty. Well, thank you for spending this time with me. I'm glad to.
Yeah, of course.
Glad to see you guys cooking along there, and urge people to check out this new album, The Traveler's Soul, and we'll look for some new stuff for you sometime or other.
Yeah. Hey, we're hoping to get down to Australia for the kind of festival season,
Yep,
and then
yep.
make our way to New Zealand.
That's
been
how
on
it
our
works
bucket
here. Yeah,
list for 10 years. So
absolutely.
well,
Okay,
I'll look you up.
please do. All right, we'll
Okay.
see you later. All right,
All right.
bye-bye.
Take care.